On 21st August 2025, in the dead of night, a Russian missile attack shook Ukraine, unleashing one of the most intense assaults of the year. This military drone strike and missile barrage didn't just target military sites, it also left a US-owned factory destroyed in western Ukraine, crippling vital critical infrastructure. Hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles rained down, spreading fear, chaos, and devastation across the region. This is more than just 2025 war news. It's a breaking news alert that marks a turning point in the ongoing military conflict. The strike sent shockwaves across Europe, triggering a swift global response from NATO and neighboring countries. In today's video, we'll reveal how this assault unfolded, which areas were hit the hardest, and how Ukraine and the international community are fighting back. Brace yourself. These are the facts you won't see anywhere else. In the dead of night, Russia carried out one of its largest and most intense missile attacks of the year on Ukraine, causing significant destruction and casualties. According to Ukrainian officials, the strikes resulted in the death of at least one person and left more than a dozen others injured. The attack targeted multiple locations in western Ukraine, including a US-owned electronics manufacturing facility, highlighting the scale and precision of the offensive. The American factory, which produces household electronics, suffered serious damage, and several employees were reportedly injured during the assault. In addition to the direct human and infrastructural toll, the strike created widespread fear and disruption across the region. The scale of the operation prompted neighboring Poland to respond quickly, deploying warplanes to safeguard its airspace and prevent any spillover effects from the Ukrainian conflict. The barrage reportedly involved hundreds of drones and ballistic, as well as cruise missiles, underscoring Russia's continued military commitment to applying pressure on Ukraine, while signaling its strategic capabilities to neighboring countries and the international community. Officials emphasized that this attack was not only a threat to Ukraine's military and industrial infrastructure, but also to civilian enterprises, demonstrating how the ongoing conflict continues to affect everyday life in the region and raise tensions across Europe. The Ukrainian Air Force reported on Thursday that Russia launched a massive aerial assault involving 574 drones, along with 40 ballistic and cruise missiles, primarily targeting the western regions of Ukraine. This attack came at a time when international diplomatic efforts were intensifying to bring an end to the ongoing three-year conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Officials emphasized that these western areas were strategically significant, as they serve as key points for the delivery and storage of military aid provided by Ukraine's western allies. By striking these locations, the assault not only caused immediate physical damage, but also aimed to disrupt the logistical flow of supplies and support critical to Ukraine's defensive capabilities. In the western city of Lviv, the consequences of the attack were severe. Governor Maxim Kozytsky confirmed that at least one civilian lost their life, 3 others sustained injuries, and 26 residential homes suffered damage due to the barrage. The scale of destruction highlights both the intensity of the Russian offensive and the vulnerability of populated areas even far from the front line. The attack underlines the continuing humanitarian and strategic toll of the war, demonstrating how the conflict continues to affect both military infrastructure and civilian communities, even in regions previously considered relatively safer from direct assaults. The recent missile strike in western Ukraine resulted in the complete destruction of the US-owned Flex factory, a facility renowned for producing everyday household items, including appliances such as coffee machines, according to a report by the Kyiv Independent. The attack underscores the continuing dangers faced by civilian and commercial infrastructure amidst the ongoing conflict. Flex, an American company with significant investment in Ukraine, had been operating its Mukachevo plant for several years, providing employment opportunities to hundreds of local residents and contributing to the regional economy. Ukraine's foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, highlighted the gravity of the situation in a post on X, emphasizing that this assault is not an isolated incident. He pointed out that earlier in the year, Russian strikes had also targeted other American businesses in Ukraine, including the offices of Boeing in Kyiv, demonstrating a troubling pattern of attacks against foreign civilian enterprises. Sybiha stressed that the Flex facility was purely civilian and had no connection to Ukraine's military operations or defense infrastructure, making it a legitimate concern for international observers. He further underlined that such deliberate targeting of civilian assets reinforces the urgency of global efforts to bring an end to the conflict. According to Sibiha, preventing further destruction of civilian infrastructure and protecting foreign investments is central to pressuring Russia to engage sincerely in negotiations and seek a peaceful resolution to the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky strongly condemned the most recent Russian missile and drone strikes, emphasizing the apparent disregard for ongoing diplomatic efforts. He remarked that these attacks were carried out as if nothing were changing at all, highlighting the relentless nature of Russian military operations despite international efforts to negotiate a resolution. Zelensky pointed out that the strikes demonstrate Moscow's lack of genuine commitment to peace talks, as no substantial progress toward ending the conflict has been observed. This condemnation comes just a week after former U.S. President Donald Trump reportedly met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, followed by meetings with Zelensky and other European leaders at the White House, aimed at discussing potential pathways to ceasefire and conflict resolution. Despite these diplomatic initiatives, Russia's continued attacks suggest a deliberate strategy to maintain military pressure on Ukraine. The scale and intensity of the strikes were significant enough that neighboring Poland scrambled its air defense systems to protect its own airspace, underscoring the broader regional risks posed by Russia's actions. Zelensky's statements serve both as a call to the international community to maintain pressure on Moscow and as a reminder of Ukraine's ongoing vulnerability to large-scale, indiscriminate attacks, even in the midst of active diplomatic negotiations. The Polish Operational Command of the Armed Forces issued a statement on 10, explaining that, due to the ongoing activity of long-range aviation units of the Russian Federation, which have been conducting repeated missile and drone strikes across Ukrainian territory, Polish airspace has been actively monitored and defended. This includes operations involving aircraft from the Polish Air Force, as well as allied aviation assets from NATO partner countries. The statement specifically noted that some of these Russian strikes involved advanced weaponry, including hypersonic missiles, which pose a significant threat to regional stability. The deployment of both national and allied aircraft is intended to safeguard Polish sovereignty, prevent any cross-border incidents, and demonstrate readiness to respond swiftly to potential escalation resulting from the conflict in neighboring Ukraine. In response to these reports, the Russian Defense Ministry confirmed that its forces had carried out targeted strikes on various sites within Ukraine, including key energy infrastructure and other strategic facilities. This statement aimed to justify their operations as part of Russia's ongoing military campaign. These strikes are part of Russia's ongoing military campaign, which it describes as aimed at weakening Ukraine's logistical and military capabilities. The ministry emphasized that these operations are legitimate military actions targeting infrastructure that supports Ukraine's defense efforts, while Poland and NATO continue to maintain vigilance and readiness to protect Allied airspace from any spillover effects of the conflict. Since launching its full-scale invasion of Ukraine more than 3 years ago, Moscow has consistently denied targeting civilian areas. Russian authorities argue that the infrastructure struck by their forces, including power plants, transportation networks, and industrial facilities, directly supports Ukraine's war effort. According to this reasoning, disabling such infrastructure weakens the Ukrainian military's capacity to sustain operations and is therefore a justified military action under Russia's interpretation of international law. Russian officials have emphasized that their attacks are carefully calculated to avoid civilian casualties, although numerous independent reports and international observers have documented significant damage to residential areas, schools, hospitals, and ordinary businesses. This discrepancy has led to widespread criticism and raised questions about Russia's compliance with the principles of proportionality and distinction in armed conflict. In addition to defending its military strikes, Russia has accused Ukraine of lacking genuine interest in achieving a long-term peace settlement. Moscow claims that Kyiv is primarily focused on obtaining security guarantees from the West that are incompatible with Russia's security concerns and stated demands. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told reporters that Ukraine's approach very specifically shows that they are not interested in a sustainable, fair, long-term settlement. According to Lavrov, Kyiv's insistence on certain conditions and external guarantees is a deliberate strategy to delay negotiations and maintain leverage, rather than a sincere effort to resolve the conflict. Through these statements, Russia aims to justify its continued military actions and to frame Ukraine as the party obstructing meaningful negotiations. By portraying its strikes as targeted and defensive while criticizing Ukraine's diplomatic approach, Moscow seeks to influence international perception, argue its case for military legitimacy, and undermine the credibility of Western-led peace initiatives. This narrative underscores Russia's position that military pressure and strategic operations are necessary to achieve security objectives in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine has continued to launch its own offensive operations using domestically produced long-range drones, targeting strategic infrastructure inside Russia that directly supports Moscow's ongoing war effort. These attacks are aimed at disrupting supply chains, energy facilities, and logistical networks that the Russian military relies upon to sustain operations in occupied and contested regions of Ukraine. By striking these key nodes, Kyiv is not only attempting to weaken Russia's operational capacity, but also to demonstrate that Ukraine possesses the technological capability and strategic reach to respond to attacks on its own territory. The use of indigenous drone technology highlights Ukraine's growing self-reliance in modern warfare and its ability to conduct precision strikes without depending entirely on foreign-supplied weaponry. In parallel with its military actions, Ukraine has been actively engaging in diplomatic preparations to secure broader security guarantees from its Western allies. President Volodymyr Zelensky has indicated that intensive meetings will soon take place to clarify the level of support and protection that partner countries are willing to provide in the event of a future escalation or ceasefire. These consultations are crucial for shaping Ukraine's defensive posture, as they will help determine the extent to which allied nations can commit resources, military assistance, and political backing to ensure the country's sovereignty is protected. Following these diplomatic engagements, Zelensky anticipates being prepared to hold direct negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin for the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion began. Reports suggest that these talks could potentially take place in a trilateral format, involving former U.S. President Donald Trump as a mediator or participant. Such a high-level negotiation would aim to bridge differences, establish concrete security arrangements, and explore possibilities for a ceasefire or peace framework. By coupling targeted military action with strategic diplomacy, Ukraine is positioning itself to strengthen both its bargaining power and its national security, signaling to Russia and the international community that it is capable of defending its interests while actively pursuing a negotiated resolution. Former U.S. President Donald Trump commented, "It is very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking an invader's country. It's like a great team in sports that has a fantastic defense, but is not allowed to play offensive. There is no chance of winning. It is like that with Ukraine and Russia." The White House did not immediately comment on whether changes to the types of weapons supplied to Kyiv were being considered. High-level meetings in Washington with military leaders from the US, Ukraine, Britain, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, and NATO officials focused on military options and security guarantees. Officials noted, "Everything is being considered and nothing is being ruled out," while Pentagon Policy Chief Elbridge Colby clarified that the US would play only a minimal role in any security guarantee for Ukraine. Ukraine's drone attacks inside Russia have struck oil refineries, causing Russian wholesale gasoline prices to reach record highs. In addition, these drones wounded 4 civilians in Russia's Belgorod region. They also damaged apartment blocks, commercial sites, and vehicles. These incidents demonstrate Kyiv's growing capability to strike strategic infrastructure within Russia. You've just witnessed one of the most significant strikes of the war. A Russian missile attack that not only devastated cities in Ukraine, but also left a US-owned factory destroyed in western Ukraine, crippling critical infrastructure and forcing a global response. If you want more breaking news, raw battlefield footage, and the latest 2025 war news with no spin, subscribe right now. Every click, every subscriber, helps us bring you deeper into the reality of this war. Stay sharp, stay safe, and stay ready, because this conflict is far from over.